Drift or procrastination is the enemy. Not failure. Not rejection. Not even fear. Drift. That quiet slide away from your purpose. That soft voice that says, "Not yet." Think it through. Wait until it makes sense. You don't fall off track in a single moment. You drift. You procrastinate. A week goes by. Then a month. Then a year. You still say you're figuring it out. But what you're doing is stalling. What you're afraid to admit is this: drift feels safe. It doesn't sting. It doesn't burn. It just delays. And because of that, it kills more dreams than failure ever could. Men don't die with empty minds. They die with full ones, full of great plans they never acted on. You know them. You've met them. Maybe you are one. Men with brilliant ideas that never left their notebooks. Men who kept saying, "soon." But drift has no finish line. It's a loop. And if you don't break it, you'll spend your whole life circling the same decisions, never crossing them. Welcome to Timbuktu Lectures, a production of Kilimanjaro News Network, the authentic voice of Africa. We studied the lives of over 25,000 men and women who achieved extraordinary success, and I can say this with absolute certainty: not one of them drifted. Not one. From Nelson Mandela to Aliko Dangote, Mo Ibrahim to Barack Obama, every single one understood this truth: procrastination is the enemy. Period. They moved. They decided. They acted. And that made all the difference. You see, action is the great separator. It's what stands between those who shape their destiny and those who live lives of quiet, resigned desperation. Success does not wait. Neither should you. You have been living a lie. Yes, you. Listening to these words with your comfortable assumptions and polite excuses still intact. This is not another gentle nudge toward self-improvement. This is a violent interruption of your sleepwalking existence. A declaration of war against the enemy that has been stealing your destiny while you smiled and nodded and made plans you never executed. I am here to strip away every comfortable delusion you have constructed about tomorrow, and when I'm ready, and if only the conditions were right. The brutal truth that successful men and women have always known is this: your future is not a gift that will be delivered to your doorstep. It is a conquest that demands immediate, decisive, and often uncomfortable action. The world owes you nothing. It will not pause while you find yourself. It will not wait while you overcome your fears. It moves forward with ruthless efficiency, and it rewards only those who move with it, or better yet, ahead of it. In this lecture, I shall reveal to you certain immutable laws, fixed principles that do not bend to opinion, nor shift with time. These laws do not merely inform, they unlock the sealed chamber of your own buried greatness. And mark this well. Action annihilates fear. Procrastination is not a harmless delay, it is the assassin of destiny. Every man or woman who has ever risen to greatness, be it in power, in purpose, or in prosperity, has grasped this truth and lived by it. Without exception. So I say to you now, listen with urgency. Take notes if you must. But more than that, engage your full attention. What you are about to receive may unsettle your comfort. It may confront your excuses. But if you are willing, truly willing, to apply it, it will alter the direction of your life. This is not inspiration. This is instruction. And know this, the pain you're feeling? It has a purpose. Part 1, the first law. Action precedes readiness. The millionaire's secret. Why the rich act before they feel ready. When we studied the habits of Africa's wealthiest and high-achieving individuals in all disciplines, we discovered something that shattered conventional wisdom. Not one of them felt ready when they began their journey to success. They acted despite their unreadiness, and in doing so, they discovered their readiness. Consider the young Barack Obama in 1995. Fresh out of Harvard Law School, he could have chosen the comfortable path of corporate law, making six figures immediately. Instead, he chose to return to Chicago's South Side, organizing communities for $10,000 a year. His friends thought he had lost his mind. His student loans were crushing him. Michelle, whom he was courting, watched him choose idealism over financial security. But here's what Obama understood that his critics did not. Readiness is not a prerequisite for greatness, it is a byproduct of courageous action. He knew that if he waited until he felt ready to serve, until he had enough money saved, until the political climate was perfect, he would spend his entire life preparing for a moment that would never come. This decision to act before he felt ready would later serve him when he faced seemingly impossible odds in 2008. A junior senator with an African father and a middle name, Hussein, that sounded foreign to American ears, running for president just 7 years after the 9th of November attack on the World Trade Center in New York, when fear of what sounded foreign or unknown was at its peak. Conventional wisdom said he should wait his turn, pay his dues, let more delectable candidates like Hillary Clinton have their moment. But Obama had learned the millionaire's secret. Those who wait for permission will never receive it. Those who wait for the perfect moment will die waiting. Let me tell you about a man who embodies this principle so completely that his story should make you ashamed of your own excuses. Aliko Dangote, now Africa's richest man, began his empire not during Nigeria's boom years, but during its most turbulent period. In 1977, when Dangote borrowed 500,000 naira, the equivalent of $3,000, from his uncle to start trading, Nigeria was politically unstable, economically uncertain, and plagued by corruption that made business ventures seem like gambling with loaded dice. Any reasonable person would have said, wait for better times. Wait for political stability. Wait for economic reform. Dangote did not wait. While others complained about conditions, he adapted to them. When others blamed external circumstances, he created internal solutions. He built his cement empire not despite Nigeria's infrastructure problems, but because of them. He saw chaos and found opportunity. Here is the brutal lesson. Every excuse you make about market conditions, economic uncertainty, or political instability is an excuse that millionaires in worse conditions refuse to make. Dangote built a $20 billion fortune in a country where the average citizen makes less than $2 a day. What's your excuse? Tony Elumelu had no formal background in banking when he acquired Crystal Bank. Mo Ibrahim launched Keltel with neither the capital nor the licenses to operate across borders. He had no permission, only a plan. And yet, he built one of Africa's first truly Pan-African telecom companies, sold it for billions, and redefined what was possible. And then there's Divine Lucula, who started her security firm in Zimbabwe with no industry experience and every reason to quit. She faced resistance, ridicule, and still built a multi-million-dollar empire in a male-dominated field. What links these names? Not credentials. Not access. But a refusal to drift. A refusal to procrastinate. They moved. They acted. And they overcame. You will never have every resource you think you need. But if you possess vision and daring, and if you are willing to move, especially when it's uncomfortable, you will summon forces far greater than luck or timing. Greatness answers only to those who act. Procrastination is a trap. The most dangerous lie you tell yourself is this: I'm not procrastinating, I'm preparing. Let me destroy this comfortable delusion with surgical precision. True preparation has a deadline and leads to action. False preparation is endless and leads only to more preparation. The difference is this: the prepared person sets a date and moves, ready or not. The perpetual preparer keeps moving the date. Consider Nelson Mandela in 1943, a young lawyer who could have spent decades studying the law, building his practice, accumulating resources before challenging apartheid. Instead, at 25, he joined the African National Congress and immediately began organizing resistance. He was not ready. He did not have enough experience, enough money, enough political connections. But he had something more valuable: the understanding that readiness comes through engagement, not through endless preparation. When the apartheid government offered him freedom in 1985 if he would merely renounce violence, Mandela faced a choice. He had been imprisoned for 23 years. He was 67 years old. The comfortable choice was to accept the offer, to tell himself he had done enough, to let younger men carry the burden. Instead, he chose to remain in prison until his conditions were met. This was not stubborn pride, this was the discipline of a man who understood that compromise with your core mission is the beginning of defeat. 5 years later, when he finally walked free, he walked into a presidency that transformed a nation. Had he taken the comfortable path in 1985, he would have been merely a footnote in history, another revolutionary who settled for partial victory. Barack Obama's rise to the presidency is a masterclass in the power of acting before you feel ready. In 2007, when he announced his candidacy, every political expert had the same response: he's not ready. They were right. He wasn't ready, by conventional standards. Hillary Clinton had been First Lady for 8 years and a senator for 6. John McCain was a war hero and veteran senator. Joe Biden had been in the Senate since Obama was 11 years old. By every traditional measure, Obama lacked the credentials, the experience, the political relationships necessary for the presidency. But Obama understood something that his more qualified opponents did not. In a change election, experience can be a liability and freshness an asset. His lack of Washington entrenchment, which should have been a weakness, became his greatest strength. More importantly, Obama had learned to act despite discomfort. His entire political career had been built on making decisions that felt premature. Running for Senate in 2004 when he had served only 7 years in the Illinois legislature. Delivering the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention when he was virtually unknown nationally. Each time, he acted before he felt ready, and each time, his readiness grew through the action itself. This is the pattern of every great achiever. They feel the fear and act anyway. They feel unqualified and run anyway. They feel unprepared and begin anyway. Part 2. The second law. Delay is the assassin of dreams. The subtle murder. It kills dreams by degrees. Most dreams are not killed by dramatic failure. They are murdered by delay, slowly, silently, comfortably. The assassin does not come with a sword but with a smile, whispering reasonable suggestions. Wait until next month. Start after the holidays. Begin when you have more money, more time, more support. Each postponement seems reasonable in isolation. Each delay appears justified. But delay is compound interest working against your dreams. Every day you wait is not just one day lost, it is one day plus all the momentum, all the learning, all the connections that day could have generated. Consider Chinua Achebe, whose novel Things Fall Apart became one of the most important works of African literature. When Achebe began writing in the 1950s, he had every reasonable excuse to delay. He was working full-time at the Nigerian Broadcasting Service. He had no formal training in creative writing. The publishing industry showed little interest in African voices. The market for African literature was virtually non-existent. A reasonable person would have waited. Waited for better market conditions. Waited for formal training. Waited for encouragement from the publishing industry. Achebe did not wait. He wrote the novel while working full-time, rising early before work, writing late into the night. He finished the book and began submitting it to publishers who had no category for African literature. The result, Things Fall Apart, has sold over 20 million copies and has been translated into more than 60 languages. It did not succeed because conditions were perfect, it succeeded because Achebe refused to let imperfect conditions delay its creation. The woman who would not wait for permission. When Ellen Johnson Sirleaf decided to run for president of Liberia in 2005, she had every rational reason to believe it was impossible. Liberia had never elected a woman president. The country had just emerged from a brutal civil war. She was 67 years old. Her opponents were younger, had more military backing, and commanded traditional respect in a patriarchal society. But Sirleaf understood a truth that stops most people from achieving greatness. Permission is not granted, it is taken. She did not wait for Liberian society to become ready for a female president. She did not wait for the perfect moment when gender bias would disappear. She ran anyway, and in running, she forced the conversation. She made her own moment. When she won, becoming Africa's first elected female president, she proved something profound. The world adjusts to accommodate those who refuse to wait for accommodation. The modern epidemic. Analysis paralysis. In our information-saturated age, delay has taken on a new, more sophisticated form. Endless analysis. We research until we are paralyzed by information. We plan until our plans become more important than our actions. We analyze until analysis becomes a substitute for execution. This is not intelligence, it is cowardice disguised as diligence. True intelligence recognizes when you have enough information to make a decision and acts on that recognition. Genius lies not in having perfect information but in making excellent decisions with imperfect information. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, makes investment decisions not when he has perfect information, but when he has sufficient information. He understands that perfect information arrives too late to be profitable. The cure for analysis paralysis is this. Set a decision deadline. Gather information until that deadline. Then decide and act, knowing that a good decision executed quickly beats a perfect decision that arrives too late. Part 3. The third law. Movement births motivation. The revolutionary truth. Motivation follows action. The greatest lie of the self-help industry is this. You must feel motivated to take action. This has it exactly backwards. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Every successful person I have studied understood this principle intuitively. They did not wait for the feeling of motivation to strike them like lightning. They created motivation through the discipline of consistent action. Consider Michael Jordan, cut from his high school basketball team. He could have waited until he felt confident, until his skills improved naturally, until his motivation returned. Instead, he used rejection as fuel. He practiced obsessively, not because he felt motivated, but because practice itself would create the motivation he needed. The neurological truth. The brain releases dopamine not when we feel like doing something, but when we do something challenging and complete it. Motivation is not the cause of action, it is the reward for action. Obama's rise was not built on moments of inspiration but on the discipline of daily action, even when, especially when, he did not feel like it. In his early days as a community organizer in Chicago, he faced constant rejection. Doors slammed in his face. Community meetings with 3 people attending, or none at times. Projects that failed. Any normal person would have interpreted these experiences as signs that they were not cut out for public service. But Obama had learned something that most people never learn. Your feelings about your progress are irrelevant to the progress itself. Every door that slammed taught him something. Every failed meeting refined his approach. Every setback became data for improvement. When he decided to run for the Illinois Senate in 1995, his marriage was under strain. Michelle questioned whether politics was worth the financial sacrifice and time away from family. Obama was earning $85,000 a year at the law firm, good money that could have been great money if he focused entirely on law. But Obama understood that comfort is the enemy of greatness. He chose the path of greater difficulty because he knew that his capacity would expand to meet the challenges he accepted. This pattern continued throughout his political career. When advisors told him not to run for president in 2008, that he should wait until 2016 when it would be his turn, Obama recognized this advice for what it was. An invitation to mediocrity disguised as wisdom. Wangari Maathai did not wake up one morning feeling motivated to plant 51 million trees. She woke up one morning and planted 1 tree. Then another. Then another. When she started the Green Belt movement in 1977, deforestation in Kenya was accelerating, government opposition was fierce, and environmental awareness was virtually non-existent. Maathai had every reason to feel discouraged, every excuse to wait for better conditions, more support, greater resources. Instead, she did something that seems almost stupidly simple: she planted a tree. That single tree did not solve deforestation. It did not change government policy. It did not create environmental awareness. But it did something more important: it proved that action was possible. The next day, she planted another tree. Not because she felt motivated, but because yesterday's action had created today's possibility. Each tree made the next tree easier. Each small action created momentum for larger actions. Here is the pattern of every great achievement. It begins not with a surge of motivation but with a decision to act despite the absence of motivation. The motivation follows the action, and the action creates the conditions for greater action. Successful people do not rely on motivation because motivation is unreliable. Instead, they rely on systems that create action regardless of how they feel. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you speak to another person, before the world can impose its agenda on you, do these 3 things. 1. Write your definite chief aim. Not just think about it, write it. The physical act of writing engages different neural pathways than thinking. It makes the abstract concrete. 2. Identify 3 specific actions that will move you toward that aim today. Not someday, not when conditions improve, today. 3. Take action on one of those 3 things immediately, before breakfast, before email, before the world can offer you excuses. This is not a suggestion. This is a system that has been proven by thousands of successful individuals across every field of human endeavor. Part 4. The 4th law. Ownership precedes change. The hardest truth. You are the author of your circumstances. This is the truth that will make you uncomfortable, that will challenge every excuse you have carefully constructed. Every result you hate in your life is something you at some level permitted. Not caused, permitted. There is a difference. You may not have caused the economy to collapse, but you permitted yourself to remain unprepared for economic uncertainty. You may not have caused others to doubt your abilities, but you permitted their doubts to become more important than your own belief. You may not have caused the obstacles in your path, but you permitted those obstacles to stop your progress. This is not victim blaming, this is power reclaiming. When you take ownership of your results, even the results you did not directly cause, you reclaim the power to change those results. When Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990, he had every justification for bitterness. 27 years of his life had been stolen. His family had suffered. His youth was gone. The apartheid government had robbed him of everything except his principles. Mandela could have spent his remaining years seeking revenge, nursing grievances, explaining why progress was impossible given what had been done to him. This would have been understandable. It would have been justified. It would have been human. Instead, Mandela made a choice that stunned the world. He took ownership not just of his own future, but of his nation's future. He refused to let his justified anger become his prison. At his inauguration in 1994, he invited his former prison guards to attend as honored guests. This was not weakness, this was the ultimate demonstration of power. A person who can transform their own pain into their nation's healing has achieved the highest form of human mastery. Mandela understood that blame, even justified blame, is a luxury that leaders cannot afford. Every moment spent focusing on what others had done wrong was a moment not spent creating what could be done right. When Aliko Dangote began building his business empire in Nigeria, corruption was endemic, infrastructure was crumbling, and regulatory uncertainty made long-term planning nearly impossible. He could have joined the chorus of entrepreneurs who blamed external conditions for their lack of success. Instead, Dangote made a radical decision. He would build the infrastructure his business needed rather than waiting for others to build it. When reliable electricity was unavailable, he built his own power plants. When transportation networks were inadequate, he built his own logistics systems. When regulatory systems were uncertain, he built relationships that created certainty. This was not just business strategy, this was ownership thinking. Instead of allowing external conditions to dictate his results, he created internal solutions that controlled his outcomes. The result? Dangote built a $20 billion fortune in Nigeria, one of the world's most challenging business environments, proving that conditions do not determine results, responses to conditions determine results. When Barack Obama decided to run for president, his advisors presented him with a detailed analysis of his disadvantages: his unusual name, his limited national experience, his race, his youth, his middle name Hussein in a post-9/11 America where fear of Muslims was widespread. A conventional politician would have tried to minimize these disadvantages, to make them less noticeable, to wait until they became less relevant. Obama did something revolutionary. He transformed his greatest disadvantages into his greatest advantages. His unusual background became proof of America's diversity. His limited Washington experience became evidence that he was not corrupted by the system. His youth became a symbol of change. Even his middle name, which advisors begged him to avoid mentioning, became part of his message of inclusivity and global understanding. This is the ultimate demonstration of ownership thinking, taking the circumstances that others see as obstacles and transforming them into the very reasons for your success. During the 2008 financial crisis, when conventional wisdom said his candidacy was doomed because Americans would not elect an African American during economic uncertainty, Obama reframed the narrative. This crisis is exactly why America needs change, not more of the same. He did not run from being different, he ran on being different. This is the power of ownership. When you take responsibility for your circumstances, you claim the power to reshape them. Part 5, The Fifth Law. Identity precedes achievement. The secret of sustained success. Becoming before doing. Most people try to achieve their way into a new identity. They believe that once they have enough success, enough recognition, enough wealth, they will finally become the person they want to be. This has it backwards. Sustained success comes from becoming the person who naturally produces those results, then allowing that identity to express itself through action. Consider how Barack Obama approached his political career. He did not try to act presidential until he became president. He developed a presidential identity years before he ran for office. His calm under pressure, his thoughtful decision-making, his ability to see multiple perspectives, these were not skills he developed after winning the election. They were character traits he cultivated that made the election winnable. Mandela was not made a leader by his release, he was a leader while imprisoned. His authority was forged in the crucible of Robben Island, not in the halls of power. Tony Elumelu thought like a banker before he ever owned a bank. He didn't wait for a title. He assumed the posture of stewardship, risk, and strategic vision years before the world caught up. The point is this: you don't wait to be given the role. You grow into it before it arrives. You embody the identity first, the results follow. The world doesn't promote you for who you are, it promotes you for who you've already become. Greatness is not assigned. It is assumed. Every morning, ask yourself this question: what would the person I want to become do today? Not what would make you feel good. Not what would be easy. Not what others expect. What would the person you are becoming do? If you want to become a successful entrepreneur, what would a successful entrepreneur do today? They would make sales calls even when they don't feel like it. They would solve problems instead of complaining about them. They would invest in their future even when their present is uncomfortable. If you want to become a leader, what would a leader do today? They would take responsibility even when it's not their fault. They would make decisions even when information is incomplete. They would serve others even when it's inconvenient. Identity is not what you think about yourself, it is what you consistently do. When Wangari Maathai began her environmental work, she was not an internationally recognized environmental leader. She was a professor concerned about deforestation in Kenya. But she made a crucial decision. She began acting like an environmental leader before she became one. Environmental leaders take action to protect the environment. So she planted trees. Environmental leaders educate others about environmental issues. So she organized workshops. Environmental leaders persist despite opposition. So she continued her work even when the government tried to stop her. Each action reinforced her identity as an environmental leader. Each reinforcement made the next action more natural. Over time, her external results matched her internal identity. This is the pattern: identity drives action, action reinforces identity, and identity and action together create results. Part 6. The final law. Persistence is the ultimate differentiator. The one quality that trumps all others. Multiple studies carried out on thousands of successful individuals across every field of human achievement, coming from different backgrounds, had different advantages, faced different obstacles, and employed different strategies. But every single one shared this characteristic. They persisted longer than their competition was willing to persist. Not smarter. Not more talented. Not better connected. Not luckier. More persistent. Persistence is not just continuing when things are going well. That's easy. Persistence is continuing when failure seems certain, when progress seems impossible, when everyone else has given up. Obama's persistence. The 2008 presidential election was not won in the general election against John McCain. It was won in the Democratic primary against Hillary Clinton, when Obama demonstrated a level of persistence that redefined political possibility. In January 2008, after Clinton's victory in New Hampshire, political experts declared Obama's campaign effectively over. Clinton had the endorsements, the money, the organization, and the momentum. Obama faced a choice: accept the inevitable or persist despite the evidence. Obama chose persistence. Not blind persistence, but strategic persistence. His campaign learned from New Hampshire, adjusted their strategy, and fought for every delegate in every state. When Clinton won the big states, Obama won the small ones. When Clinton dominated the headlines, Obama dominated the delegate math. This is what true persistence looks like: adapting without abandoning, learning without quitting, adjusting the approach while maintaining the objective. The persistence paid off in ways that transformed American politics. Obama's unlikely victory proved that in America, the impossible is just a longer path to the inevitable. Dangote's empire was not built during prosperity, it was built through crisis. The Nigerian economy collapsed multiple times during his rise. Currency devaluations wiped out millions in value. Political instability threatened his operations. Corruption demanded constant vigilance. Each crisis presented an opportunity to quit, to blame external circumstances, to wait for better times. Dangote's competitors often chose these options. Dangote chose persistence. But this was not passive persistence, this was active, intelligent persistence. During economic downturns, while competitors retreated, Dangote expanded. During currency crises, while others hoarded foreign currency, Dangote invested in local production capacity. During political instability, while others postponed decisions, Dangote built relationships across political divides. The result: each crisis that destroyed his competitors made Dangote stronger. His persistence was not just about surviving difficulties, it was about using difficulties as stepping stones to greater success. Most people quit not during the hardest part of their journey, but just before the breakthrough. They persist through the obvious difficulties but give up when success seems closest, because that is when the pressure is greatest. Consider Nelson Mandela in the 1980s. After decades of imprisonment, international pressure on the apartheid government was mounting. Change seemed inevitable. This was precisely when many freedom fighters began to compromise, to accept partial victories, to take whatever deal was offered. Mandela faced his greatest test of persistence not during the hardest years of imprisonment, but during the final years when partial freedom was offered in exchange for compromise on his principles. This is the ultimate test of persistence. Continuing when the easy way out is available, when compromise seems reasonable, when others urge you to accept good enough. Mandela's refusal to compromise during these final years transformed his eventual release from a personal victory into a national transformation. His persistence in the final phase multiplied the impact of his persistence in all previous phases. Can you see the pattern? Ibrahim faced 47 rejections before a single investor believed in his vision for Pan-African telecommunications. 47 times he was told no, and he kept building anyway. He persisted. Tony Elumelu took on a failing bank and watched the debts mount, but he refused to surrender to the numbers. He saw what others couldn't: a future worth enduring the present for. He persisted. Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, a cornerstone of African literature, was rejected repeatedly before it found a publisher. The world wasn't ready. He didn't wait for it to be. He persisted. Wangari Maathai planted trees while the government uprooted them. She was beaten, jailed, ridiculed, and still she planted. And Dr. Catherine Nakalem? She mapped food insecurity from the sky, using satellite data and machine learning, when no one thought African nations would ever fund that kind of science. She didn't wait for approval, she built until the world had to notice. Persistence isn't optional. It's the thread that runs through every great story. You will be rejected. You will face resistance. You will walk alone. But the ones who rise are the ones who stay in motion. Obstacles are not the reason to quit. They are the proof you're on the right path. Persistence is the common thread. The unshakable center. The force that makes the difference. It outlasts rejection. It outthinks delay. It outpaces doubt. You don't need everything to be perfect. You need persistence to keep moving when nothing is. Let the world say no once, or 47 times, even 1,000 times. Let them question your plan, your path, your right to be here. But don't you dare quit. Because persistence, not permission, is what builds greatness. The moment of reckoning. You have now been given the complete blueprint. The laws are clear, the examples are documented, the path is illuminated. You know what successful people do differently. You understand why most people fail despite good intentions. You have been shown the specific actions that create extraordinary results. Now comes the moment of truth. What will you do with this knowledge? You have 3 choices. First, you can skip this lecture, not appreciatively, perhaps discuss its insights with others, then return to your previous patterns. This is what most people do. They collect knowledge but never apply it. They understand principles but never live them. They remain interested but never become committed. Second, you can implement these principles partially, when it's convenient, when you feel motivated, when conditions are favorable. This is what some people do. They get some results, make some progress, then plateau when the going gets tough. They achieve more than the first group but far less than their potential. Third, you can make an irrevocable decision to embody these principles completely, to let them transform not just your actions but your identity. This is what very few people do. This is also why very few people achieve extraordinary results. The choice is yours. But understand this, not choosing is a choice. If you do not consciously choose to implement these principles, you have unconsciously chosen to remain where you are. Before you leave this lecture, write your definite chief aim. Not tomorrow, not when you have more time, now. Be specific. Be measurable. Be bold. Example of a weak aim: I want to be successful. Example of a strong aim: I will build a $10 million business by providing specific solution to a specific market by a specific date, allowing me to employ 50 people and contribute $1 million annually to specific cause. Your aim should make you slightly uncomfortable. If it doesn't scare you a little, it's not big enough. Fear is the compass that points toward growth. Identify the one action that, if taken today, would create the most momentum toward your definite chief aim. Not the easiest action, not the most comfortable action, the most impactful action. Take that action before you go to sleep tonight. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. This is your test: will you be among the few who act immediately or among the many who postpone indefinitely? Starting tomorrow morning, implement the daily ritual outlined in this lecture. 1. Write your definite chief aim. 2. Identify 3 actions that move you toward that aim. 3. Take action on one of those 3 things immediately. Do this for 30 days without exception. No matter how you feel, no matter what obstacles arise, no matter what excuses present themselves. After 30 days, you will be a different person. Not because the actions themselves are magical, but because the discipline of consistent action despite feelings will have transformed your identity. The world does not need another person who understands these principles. The world needs another person who lives them. Your success is not just about you. Every time you choose action over delay, persistence over surrender, ownership over blame, you give others permission to do the same. Your example becomes their evidence that extraordinary results are possible. Barack Obama's presidency was not just his personal achievement, it was proof to every child who looked different, sounded different, or came from somewhere different that the highest office in the land was available to them too. Nelson Mandela's transformation from prisoner to president was not just his personal victory, it was evidence to the world that reconciliation is possible even after the deepest wounds. Aliko Dangote's business empire is not just his personal wealth, it is proof to every African child and entrepreneur that global success is achievable from African soil. Your success, when it comes, will not be just your success. It will be evidence to everyone watching that these principles work, that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary results, that the African dream, or whatever dream drives you, is still alive and available. You now stand at the same crossroads where every successful person once stood. Behind you lies the comfortable familiarity of your current life. Ahead lies the uncertain but unlimited possibility of your potential life. The decision you make in the next few minutes will determine which life you live. Most people stand at this crossroads forever, unable to decide, paralyzed by possibility. They spend their lives neither fully accepting their current circumstances nor fully committing to changing them. Do not be most people. Choose. Commit. Act. The world is waiting for the contribution that only you can make. Your community needs the leadership that only you can provide. Your family deserves the example that only you can set. But none of this will happen automatically. It will happen only if you decide, in this moment, to become the person who makes it happen. The time for preparation is over. The time for action is now. Rise. Decide. Act. Become. Your future is not a distant possibility, it is an immediate opportunity. Seize it.
Congratulations. You've sat through the lecture. You've heard the names. You've seen the pattern. You now know, with brutal clarity, that success does not belong to the lucky, the talented, or the well-connected. It belongs to those who don't drift, who don't procrastinate, but those who act, those who persist. Not once, not twice, but again, and again, and again, until the wall breaks or the path opens. And so I ask you, right here, right now, will you act? Will you persist? Not when it's convenient, not when you feel inspired, but when you're tired, uncertain, unseen, will you still move forward? Because that is where this journey begins. Not in the knowing, but in the doing. Not in the applause, but in the silence that precedes the breakthrough. Understand this, you are out of excuses. You can no longer claim ignorance. You can no longer hide behind the fog of confusion or the myth of not being ready. You've been given the map. You've been shown the route. And you've heard the footsteps of those who walked it before you. Achebe, Maathai, Elumelu, Ibrahim, Mandela. They weren't chosen. They chose. To persist. To act. To become. So now the spotlight shifts. The stage is yours. And the question is no longer what do you know, but what will you do? Write your definite chief aim. Take the boldest step you can take before the sun sets. Then take another tomorrow. And the next day. And the next. Do not wait for the world to crown you. Crown yourself with discipline. With vision. With persistence. Because when you persist, you shift reality. You rewrite the future. You defy the odds until the odds no longer matter. And one day, not far from now, someone will tell your story. Not because you were the most gifted, but because, when the moment came, you did not quit. You did not flinch. You persisted. And that, more than anything else, changed everything. Timbuktu Lectures is a production of Kilimanjaro News Network, the authentic voice of Africa. Broadcasting in Swahili, Arabic, Hausa, English, and French. Don't forget to like, share and scan our QR code to access our YouTube channel and website. Revisit this lecture again and again. Share with your friends and family.